but he wants Turner to keep the show on for another couple of months until they find another outlet to put the show Monday Nitro on. Even if because they consider moving to Tuesdays, they were trying to contact other networks to see, or independent channels which are available mostly on pay television, to see if can we put Nitro on. And Turner was like, nope, we're not waiting, we're canceling them right now. They canceled them March 2001, and because there's no television, it's really a death knell to WCW because they have to have some sort of revenue coming in. That the Bischoff deal was done. So they canceled both of the shows, and they still have these assets and still need to sell it. So because of the lawsuit, guess who gets first dibs?
Uh-oh.
WWF. They end up purchasing the assets of WCW in March 2001.
Oh, then 2001. Okay, yeah, so WWF.
So yeah, they air the last Nitro show 2 weeks before WrestleMania 17. I told you my opinion, one of the best WrestleManias out there, top to bottom. And they show they begin the show as they begin the first Monday Nitro in 1995. Yeah, Sting versus Ric Flair. Booker T becomes the WCW, the last technical WCW World Heavyweight and United States Champion, and they do a simulcast. And during the whole show, Vince McMahon is on both TNT and USA, and at the end, the last 15 minutes, it's a simulcast of Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro, and Vince McMahon on both shows.
Yeah,
simulcast.
That's a dominance move.
Yeah, declaring I beat Turner and I'm number one until his son showed up and go, I bought WCW, which is part of a storyline. Gotcha. And also at that time, they had purchased the intellectual property and assets of Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW. The wrestling wars of the 90s were over for that point. So WWE is the only game in town at that point for a couple of years. Well, for a year. And around 2002, a wrestling family, Jeff and Jerry Jarrett, who had worked for Vince McMahon before, father and son, been in the wrestling business for a very long time, were having a fishing trip. And they were going because Vince McMahon wouldn't hire Jeff Jarrett back because Jeff Jarrett famously walked out on him over a pay dispute. And they were like, well, WCW is gone. What we're going to do? We still want to be in the wrestling business. So they came up with the idea of TNA Wrestling, Total Nonstop Action. And they started this company, and they were going to do it differently, how other companies do it, because you had to have television. They were going to do a weekly pay-per-view, only charge $3 to $5.99 per pay-per-view, and start building up that. And eventually they did, even though it was really slow going, but eventually they got a TV deal with what was the name of that company? That channel. They eventually got a TV deal, and they were really considered to be competition for the WCW. And they were really started off pretty. They had a terrible start, but they didn't really start to pick up its stride when they started getting more money in, and a little mainstream popularity in a television deal. They kind of became the second biggest wrestling company in the United States. And they got a Spike TV deal at the time. And they were second, but really because of their own mishaps. And pretty much their mishaps, they've fallen down. But they didn't stop the WWE from them suing WWE.
Right.
Well, here's what happened. On May 23rd, 2012, Total Nonstop Action, TNA, sued former employee Brian Wittenstein in WWE. The suit alleges that Wittenstein violated a non-disclosure agreement and shared confidential information with the WWE, which represented a competitive advantage in negotiating for wrestling talent under contract with TNA. He was subsequently hired by the WWE, after which TNA asserted that Wittenstein violated the agreement by downloading confidential TNA trade secrets and provided information to WWE. Excuse me. Throughout WWE fired Wittenstein and alerted TNA officials as to the disclosure information, TNA claimed that WWE had access to the information for 3 weeks prior to the disclosure, and in this time, the WWE used secret contract information and attempted to poach their talent in violation of Tennessee's Uniform Trade Secrets Act. The lawsuit was formally withdrawn without prejudice by the plaintiff TNA on January 15, 2013, under a notice of voluntary non-suit, which offered no ruling on the merits of the suit and allowed TNA to potentially refile at a later date.
Sounds like some cash exchanged hands. Or something.
Yeah, something a little lower.
Or just a deal. They got paid to not continue the issue.
Yeah, and people were a little not understanding what I just read. It's just, I'll give you a quick layman's summary. This guy comes in, Brian Wittenstein. He gets hired by the WWE. They give him information on when TNA's talent contracts expire and how much they're making. So it gives an advantage of, the WWE, this is how much they were making in TNA. Okay, they can just call a talent that they're interested in and just like, hey, here's your contract's coming up pretty soon. How about we offer you this to come to WWE?
Okay.
So that's it.
Can't do that.
Yeah, can't do that at all. And they just recently got sued by another company.
Wow.
January 11, 2022, Major League Wrestling filed an antitrust lawsuit against the WWE, accusing them of interfering in television and streaming deals and poaching talent. Throughout the lawsuit, it was disclosed that a streaming deal with the Fox Corporation owned Tubi was terminated due to WWE allegedly threatening to pull their programming from the sibling Fox broadcast network. The suit alleges that the WWE pressured Vice TV to withdraw from negotiations with MLW.
If people are not familiar, Tubi was very, very free, legit viewing company that you can see just about any movie you've ever seen ever on their website, and it's still free, but it sounds like they're making moves. So
right.
If you got Tubi now, watch all the movies you can, because it sounds like you're gonna have to pay pretty soon.
Yeah, and they're screwing with the company. And Major League Wrestling, it's I like it. I like Major League Wrestling. It's another company that gives wrestlers an opportunity to be able to be on a national stage. And if this is true, that yes, like Fox has their main show SmackDown. Have a main show SmackDown on Friday nights, and Tubi was supposed to be airing these Major League Wrestling shows, which Major League Wrestling doesn't have a television partner right now. Okay. They just mainly like YouTube or streaming. And Tubi was like, hey, we'll show their shows. And not only that they were negotiating with Vice TV. And supposedly WWE came in and was like, no, don't put them on television. Now, I don't believe the Vice TV part, because WB, like Fox doesn't have anything to do with Vice TV, or I think if they do, very limited. Vice TV has taken shots at the WWE before their documentary series, the Dark Side of the Ring. Their Vice TV's highest grossing show has gone after the WWE multiple times. I think it might have just something get broken down with the talks between MLW and Vice TV, but the Tubi thing I totally believe.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's part of it's how they stifle competition and another main fact, but we'll get to that at towards the end of the show. There's a lot of crimes that the WWE committed.
A lot of crime.
A lot of crimes on douchey shit. But this next one is it.
Oh boy.
It's hard and even to talk about, and
man,
it's still hard.
My gosh,
the WWE, Vince McMahon is guilty and eligible over death of one of their wrestlers.
Okay.
First episode we talked about Bret Hart.
Yep.
And we talked about how he was screwed over the Montreal Screwjob again, and we talked about how his brother Owen couldn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't get out of his contract. That contributed to his death a couple of years later.
Okay.
At the back in 1999, there was a pay-per-view called Over the Edge. It was called WWF Over the Edge. It was second in, to this day, it's final, and hopefully you never hear that title ever again.
Okay.
Wrestling pay-per-view. It was held on May 23rd, 1999 at the Kepler Arena in Kansas City, Missouri. And it's most infamous for being the event that Owen Hart had tragically passed away from an accident.
Okay.
So we talked about a little about like the Hart family. We talked about Bret in the last episode. I'm not going to reach, and we talked a little bit about Owen in the last episode. So I'm not going to go too far into it.
Okay.
Owen, but we'll just go to this incident. So Owen can't get out of his contract. He was bounced around, still working for the WWE, trying to finish out his contract. Bounced around for different characters and stuff. Well, different matches and stuff like that. So he had the character he was portraying shortly before he passed away was the character he played when he first came into the WWE, the character of the Blue Blazer.
Okay.
It was kind of a superhero gimmick, the Blue Blazer. And but this revived gimmick, he was parodying other wrestlers, not just wrestlers in the WWE, but wrestlers like in WCW and ECW. So that night at Over the Edge, Owen Hart, as the Blue Blazer, was to challenge the Godfather for the WWF Intercontinental Championship.
Okay.
Now, he was supposed to come to the ring for the match. He's supposed to be emulating a wrestler in WCW, Sting. I had mentioned Sting before. And what Sting was doing, when the NWO was at its peak, Sting was betraying, you know who Sting is.
I know who Sting is, yes.
Like he's
black and white painting on his face.
Yeah, he was emulating the Crow. Like before, like he was kind of the movie The Crow. Brandon Lee painted his face, Vengeance.
I never got that.
Yeah, that was a whole.
I never got that.
Yeah, he was emulating the movie The Crow. The Crow in 1994, and some sequels put on the black and white face paint, it being this Avenger, and it was supposed to be the Avenger for WCW. That's what Sting was portraying. Even though before he had always wore face paint, but it was kind of he was kind of like a surfer dude. It was a little weird because he was supposed to be like this surfer dude, like bodybuilder, fan favorite, but he wore face paint. Like I don't know. We're not gonna get too much into it. But Sting was still cool. It didn't matter. Sting was still cool. But because of this ongoing war, they wanted to emulate wanted to emulate Sting, his ring entrance by descending from the arena's rafters in a ring. See, that's what Sting was doing. He